What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. Tonight we're going to talk to journalist and commentator Stuart Hodge for the latest in Celtic's pursuit of Eddie Howe. Before we get started, I have to tell you about our sponsors, OneFootball. You know the drill by now. The OneFootball app is the best football app on the planet. You can get line-up notifications as soon as the teams are announced on match days. You can get goal alerts from games from all around the world, league tables as well. You can add widgets to your home screen to keep up to date with Celtic's next fixture, who it's against, what the kick-off time is, all that sort of stuff. You can download the app by clicking the link in the description of this video. It's free wherever you get your apps on your phone, and it's a brilliant way for you to support Celtic Fans TV. So if you haven't downloaded it already, please click the link below, get involved, and let me know what you think. Tonight's video is live, so get involved in the live chat, ask your questions. We've already had some coming in on Twitter today, so we'll get the best ones together and we'll ask them to Stuart at the end. Cheers. Yes, folks, welcome to Celtic Fans TV. Apologies for the late start. There's always a technical issue when you're live broadcasting, but we've got it fixed and we're just about ready to go. I'm delighted to be joined by Stuart Hodge, journalist and commentator. Stuart, how you doing, man?
Aye, not too bad, mate. It's an interesting one. My internet's just decided not to play ball when I realised that I'm going to try and respond to dozens of DMs that I've just not been able to answer for the last couple of weeks. So I'd like to say thanks, first of all, to all the Celtic fans and Scottish football fans that have got in touch since obviously I broke a couple of wee stories. Well, I think the one thing is, I always just try and do, I've got no agenda. I'm not working for a paper. I'm not trying to keep MD happy. If I know something and I can substantiate it to be true properly, then I'll just report it. Because there's no point in chasing wee bits of money off papers these days anyway, because they've not got any to give you.
Aye, absolutely. You were ahead of the curve on a few occasions already with this. I just want to start with a wee bit of background, with how you first heard about it, when you first heard about it. And then we'll talk about it a wee bit more detail and we'll get to the audience's questions at the end.
Cool. It looks like the signal's beginning to get jarry, but if that happens, we've got a backup plan just so as everybody knows. So basically, obviously the Eddie Howe thing, I think the first time stuff was getting reported that he was a potential candidate, and if you look at Fergal Harkin as well, which was another name that was linked, that was earlier on in the year. But I was first made aware that a conversation. So the first sort of step in the process was knowing that Dominic Mackay was going to be coming in as essentially the marketing strategist, the sort of financial sort of wizard that's going to take Celtic's brand hopefully and expand that across new territories and whatever, make the club money in new places. Done a brilliant job with Scottish rugby. So that was the first thing. And I then became aware of a meeting that was going to take place between Eddie Howe and his representatives, Dermot Desmond and Dominic Mackay. And when I became aware of that, the way it works in journalism is you should never believe something if you've no got more than one source. But for this, because it was one of these, it was so sort of tightly wrapped things, I only had the one source. So you'll notice, compared to like other stuff that I've said and reported and whatever, with that I said a source tells me, or I can't remember the way I phrased it, but it was along those lines, because essentially what I was saying is one person's telling me this, it's a person that I trust, it's a person that's given me information in the past that I've not necessarily reported, but I do trust them, I trust it to be true. And I actually approached one of the national newspapers and said, look, I've got this story for you. Do you want to set one of your reporters on it, and you're going to have a belt and exclusive? You're going to know who the new Celtic manager is. They knocked it back, and I kind of thought at that point, like, I've had a few sort of instances that have just pointed me in my journalism career away from sort of working for newspapers and concentrating more in the football commentary and other types of things. And with that in mind, at that point, I just went, do you know what? I'll tell Twitter. And then it was one of them, because obviously it's just one person, so you're kind of putting your reputation in the line a wee bit, but just going, look here, I think this is true. And it turned out it was true. 5 days later, every national outlet, but most of them reported it anyway, what we'd known 5 days before. And fortunately, because the way journalism works is you make connections, you make contacts, you build trust. And through the process of doing that over the years, I've not necessarily utilised that in the way that I have recently, because I've changed my tack. Rather than trying to flog stories, I'm just reporting stuff when I've done my due diligence journalistically. So that's how I've managed to stay ahead of the curve a wee bit on this one, for the most part.
As
So
you said,
that was a bit of waffle. Sorry if that wasn't.
No, not at all, mate. Not at all. I enjoyed it. I'm sure the audience did as well. As you said, that was a couple of months ago now, and the rumours have been going on for a while, and it seems like every time the rumours have been that the announcement is imminent, something else puts it off, and again, you just end up with more guesses and more like random explanations as to why it might have been delayed.
My Donald Trump impression's not very good, right? So I can't do the whole fake news, right? But see the amount of misinformation that genuinely, because obviously now that I've reported a few things, people are approaching me all the time with stuff they've heard and is this true, blah, blah, blah. So it's getting even harder to discern what's true and what isn't. Obviously, there was loads of doubts floating about because a couple of times Eddie Howe's representatives are folk connected to that sort of element of the Eddie Howe operation have basically tried to stir the pot a wee bit. It happened.
Why do you think they did that? Do you think that was because they knew that the official announcement would have been a couple of months away, so they just wanted to cool it down?
I think there's an element in all of these things, right? There's an element of brand management for everybody, right? So Eddie Howe as a brand, right? See Celtic, we've got to face the stark reality that what Celtic now is a really good reboot vehicle for managers that have made a mistake doing in England. Look at Brendan Rodgers after Liverpool. Obviously jumped ship to Leicester, and he'll now get another top 6 job because he's done another top job down at Leicester. And Eddie Howe's, I don't think he's in Brendan Rodgers' calibre as a manager, but Eddie Howe's got the chance to come up here and do things that he would never get to do with a Crystal Palace. You know what I mean? He's going to be able to come up here. He's going to be able to compete in Europe. He's going to get the chance to, hopefully, if COVID and all that permits, play in one of the best stadiums, if not the best stadium in the world, the best fans, arguably, in world football, when they're on it anyway. And with all of that in mind and the chance to win trophies and win medals, I think that's a massive thing for a manager, because football's a career that even once you leave your playing career, the instances and opportunities only come up at certain times, and this is the time that this opportunity is coming up for him, and it's the time that the opportunity suits him. So that's why despite all the sort of mistruths and kind of rumours and what about housery, I don't want to swear because it's before the watershed, that there's been, I've never been in any doubt, like since I heard that it was happening, that it was going to happen. And that's not just because I trust my sources, it's because logic basically dictates that this is the right job for him to take anyway.
What I want to work through some of that, what you term misinformation.
Okay.
So we'll start with one of the delays being that Bournemouth were in the playoffs and that there was some sort of there was a reason that we had to wait until Bournemouth's season was finished before it could possibly be announced. Is that right, based on what you've heard?
Right. So I'm not an expert in contractual law. Right. That's the first thing that I'll put out there, and especially when it comes to the complexities of football contracts. I'm not financially trained. I'm not legally trained. I'm not any of that. What I do know is it's a very complex process, and that as much as things can be agreed on sort of one side of a thing, you can have everything in, all your ducks in a row in one sense, but it can be a few sort of box checking kind of elements in another sense that can delay the whole thing. But first off, I would caveat everything by saying that Celtic Football Club have been a disgrace in their communication of this whole process. The contempt with which this is Celtic Fans TV, the contempt with which Celtic fans have been treated by the club with regards to this whole thing is appalling. And I think their idea is that if you wheel it out as one sort of big circus, here's everybody and they all singing, all dancing kind of thing, that everybody's going to be like, yippee. But I think people are really, really peed off with the fact that nothing seems to have changed, because the fans have been taken for granted for so many years now. And I don't think there's any doubt that the situation would have transpired completely differently last season if fans were in the ground. But, and obviously talking about pressure and Lennon, things happening earlier, whatever.
Yeah.
But with regard to this whole process, you would think with Dominic Mackay coming in, that there would hopefully be this kind of new sort of realisation that Celtic is a football club in the 21st century and should communicate with its fans with a level of respect that is befitting of the modern football fan, the modern socially engaged, socially aware football fan. And there just seems to have been no element of that, which is why there have been so many mistruths and nonsense rumours and rubbish like just getting perpetrated everywhere. And it's Celtic, I don't know if it's suiting their agenda in some way, allowing that to happen, rather than kind of eking it out and saying, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing that. I think they want to roll it out all as one big thing. I don't know the logic behind that. And I can't actually do any guesswork at the logic. I mean, can you see why they would want to do that? Do you not think it would be better to say, look, we have agreed a deal in principle that Eddie Howe is going to be manager. We cannot necessarily say that the whole structure is in place yet, because we don't know what that's going to be. Because obviously, this isn't just about Eddie Howe. This is about a wider sporting structure. This is about Fergal Harkin, Richard Hughes, other names that are getting flung about. What is that going to look like? And my one sort of caveat, and I said this in one of my own streams, is Celtic need to be aware of too many cooks spoiling the broth. If you end up with Fergal Harkin, Richard Hughes, Dominic Mackay and Eddie Howe, who's in charge of transfer policy there?
I mean, I think they want it all to coincide with season ticket renewals. I think that's blindingly obvious.
Yeah.
And if the more blockbuster it is, then I think they think the more season tickets that they'll sell.
I think that's true. Another element is because Celtic's a PLC, they've got to report it to the stock exchange first. So that is an element that has to be considered in terms of the timeline of this whole process. But and as I will caveat everything I say here, I am not an expert in the contractual and the legalities of it. But I don't understand why you wouldn't communicate with fans, at least to say something's cooking, you know? Like it's just never been the way Celtic have done things, though, is it? It's not good enough. It's not good enough. Like for a modern football club, and a football club the size of Celtic, with the scope, the fan base, the history of Celtic Football Club, it's appalling.
The backroom staff, I want to come to that. Obviously, it looked for all the world like Celtic, again, going by the stories, we're going to appoint Fergal Harkin as the director of football. Now, then there became, again, more rumours about Eddie Howe wanting to bring in his own people and Richard Hughes, who he worked with at Bournemouth. So where are we standing on that? Is it a decision between Howe and Hughes or Harkin? Or as you just said there, do you end up with all three? Is it one or the other in terms of Harkin or Hughes?
I don't know what this sporting model is going to look like. I will say that now. I've got a few things that I know. Firstly, Fergal Harkin is the guy that the board basically anointed as the man that they wanted to do that. And by the way, fabulous pedigree in two areas, both in a commercial sort of branding side and also in terms of being the loan manager at Man City. You know, I mean, that's international connections that Celtic can leverage in abundance. So Fergal Harkin would be a fantastic appointment and is the person the board wanted. In football, obviously, the way that you can work with people, and I've heard about Eddie Howe as well, is the public persona of Eddie Howe is not like that we would think of, like kind of nice wee guy, Bournemouth manager, had a wee spell at Burnley, whatever, plays nice football. That's not necessarily what he's like sort of behind closed doors, because I've sort of spoken to people that worked with him and alongside him and around him at Bournemouth, and he's a man of steel. Like he's a man of steel. He doesn't take any prisoners. And actually, it was Jason Tyndall, his assistant at Bournemouth, who was more the kind of jocular, sort of light-hearted one. So I think that's something to consider. And if you consider that man of steel, sorry, I've probably coined that now. Everybody's going to be tweeting or something. But if you think Eddie Howe is a guy who very much knows his own mind and has a great deal of sort of self-conviction, he's obviously going to very strongly want who he's worked with successfully in the past as his sort of lieutenants at Celtic Football Club. Now, the latest that I sort of heard as soon as last night is that what helped get negotiations over the line when sort of eventually all of the kind of ducks did get in a row, to use that phrase again, was that he did get what he wanted, which you would surmise would be Richard Hughes. But I can't see Celtic passing up their chance to appoint Fergal Harkin in some sort of capacity. So what that then begs the question is, what is that sporting model going to look like? Because there's all sorts of terminology you can use. You can call it a director of football, you can call it a sporting director, you can call it a technical director, and then you can maybe refer to like a head of scouting, which would be a role junior to any of the other ones that I just termed there. Now, from what I can gather, Fergal Harkin, Director of Football, is the title that would be appointed to him from what I'm hearing at the moment, although I'm not confirming any of this. This is just the latest that I'm hearing. I'm not saying that's done. But that's happening. And then Richard Hughes in some sort of technical director / scouting role. And the idea of them both coming in, then you've got Dominic Mackay as like the sort of super bean counter marketing man, and then Eddie Howe. So what you've got to wonder is this transfer policy by committee now? How is that necessarily going to work? What is that sporting structure going to look like? And is there going to be tensions potentially appear if there's a disagreement in strategy between, say, Fergal Harkin and Richard Hughes? So there's a lot of questions to be answered there. And I think, to be honest, for the future of Celtic Football Club, as important as getting the manager right, in a modern football club, you have to have the sporting model right. One of the reasons that Rangers have been able to bounce back so successfully is Michael Beale's coaching, Steven Gerrard's kind of leadership as a figurehead, but Ross Wilson coming in and directing their transfer policy and being given the reins to do that has been a massive factor, I feel, in Rangers being able to, as well as Celtic's complete abject capitulation, and Rangers managing to do that. But a proper modern thinking football club should have a proper modern sporting model. And the one good thing is it looks like Celtic are finally going to take that step into the 21st century rather than just the Peter Lawwell chief executive, kind of go to his door if you want a player kind of vibe.
I think that's definitely long overdue. In terms of jobs down south, Crystal Palace, Tottenham, West Brom, numerous clubs have let their managers go recently. Is there any... Could these delays create a situation where these clubs try and turn Eddie Howe's head, or they try and step in, or is it as good as verbally done? It's just a formality.
I've reported it's a done deal. I've said that Eddie Howe, and I've said this more than 2 weeks ago now, more than 2 weeks before Keith Jackson's story in the Record last night. Eddie Howe will be the 21st permanent manager of Celtic Football Club, and I stand by that story. I will not go back on that. I don't see that not happening, barring something catastrophic. Like I'm talking to like something that's totally unrelated to football, you know?
Yeah. I want to jump to some questions that we got from Twitter today. I'll start with Kevin Taylor. You've kind of already touched on this. Is Fergal Harkin still likely to be involved in the setup? So given what you've just said there, do you expect Fergal Harkin to be involved somewhere, regardless of what the title will be?
Yes. I think as I say, I think it's probably going to be... I think there's more chance of him being there than Richard Hughes, but I think they will both now be part of the setup. But I have learned too many cooks spoil the broth, so Celtic need to be careful with that.
Yeah. I just want to touch on you talking about Eddie Howe's self-conviction and a bit of ruthlessness. I think all top managers have that. And I think they need that. And I think it's a very good thing for Celtic, given the situation that we're in as well. Celtic67 on Twitter is asking, can we expect to see some form of announcement this week? Obviously, the Keith Jackson story that you touched on there seemed to suggest that it will be this week. And I mentioned earlier, Bournemouth's season is now done. So if that was a hold-up, then that's out of the way now. Can we expect it this week?
Yes. I think it will happen this week. Could be as soon as tomorrow.
Well, a few people have asked. Tomorrow is obviously the 25th of May, the most storied date in Celtic's history. Is that the perfect time to announce it, or have the club got enough social media content for tomorrow?
They probably do. To be fair, they've had to work hard on social media this year to keep anybody engaged. But yes, I mean, I think it'll happen this week. I mean, you would say that the stars would align, and then it almost kind of exonerates Celtic for this sort of complete lack of any communication with fans. If you go all out, we were just waiting to give you a wee surprise, you know. But aye, that will happen this week, I'm pretty sure.
Joseph McKenna on Twitter has asked about 7 questions.
He has engaged with me so much. So one of many fans that I'm really, really grateful that are sort of following me and asking me questions. And I'm so sorry I haven't been able to get to more of them. It's partly through busyness with like work and stuff. Like around the kind of the work a day that I get paid for, because I don't get paid for doing any of this stuff. Secondly, see all that misinformation that I'm trying to troll through. I've got to kind of shield myself. Let's go to the point now where I've got to kind of shield back for sort of fan questions so that I can keep my own clarity. You know what I mean? Speak to the people that I trust and keep my own sense of being a man of steel.
Aye. Well, I think he's been saving up all his questions for you that you haven't answered, because he's asked about 7 questions in this tweet. I'll select 2 or 3. Will he be bringing Purchase and Weatherstone from Bournemouth? Yes. Has he been working? Yes. Yeah.
I think that was part of his sort of terms, but I can't see why Celtic would renege on that. Yep. I know that at least one of them is definitely happening.
Yep. Has he been doing any work behind the scenes? I mean, I don't know if anyone could possibly know that, but you would think if he's about to accept the job, he's definitely been watching, because he's got a lot to do if and when he comes in.
It's a big job. Now, legally speaking, he can't have been doing any work behind the scenes.
Aye, of course.
Right.
Of course.
So I've got a sort of caveat in I say with that. But the idea that he's just been sat in his haunches and like his hunkers, kind of like just watching the end of that season sort of trail by and no make some decisions or start at least sounding out some potential paths that he could forage in terms of rejuvenating the team, then I think it would be silly to think that hadn't been happening.
In other news, by the way, it's 2-0 to Dundee inside 14 minutes. So come on.
Charlie Adam got either of them?
No, Daniel Mullen and Lee Ashcroft.
Nicely done.
So there you go.
Cheers, Jeff.
What is before we sort of round up tonight, mate? I'm grateful for your time. I don't want to keep you all night.
You can keep me a wee while. I've got a couple of wee things I'm going to fling in as well, but it's nice to keep people waiting for a couple of wee tidbits at the end. Which normally I would tweet out, but because you've been kind enough to have me on, I'll say them on this stream.
Brilliant.
And then you can clip it out. Then you can clip
information.
It out,
yeah. Sorry. The latest information. You expect it to be announced this week. You think Fergal Harkin will be involved in some capacity, and he's going to bring his staff from Bournemouth, and we don't know about Richard Hughes yet.
I think that Richard Hughes, and I'm not 100% on what the sporting model will look like. I think Fergal Harkin and Richard Hughes will probably form part of that, but if it was to be one or the other, I would still lean towards Fergal Harkin.
Perfect. Fire away with your final bits of information, mate.
Right, so do you want to hear the best rumour that I've heard, of all the misinformations and mistruths that I've heard from an anonymous source?
Is it just for humorous purposes?
No, kinda, but I think there might actually be some in it, but I've only heard it from one person, and it sounds well random, but it sounds pretty amazing if this is, and I wouldn't want to spoil it if it is true, but I have to say it. Best rumour I've heard is, so I should say this now, I don't watch Line of Duty, but I know that there's this big thing about a character called H, right? And the best rumour I've heard is that the unveil is going to be Martin Compston revealing that Eddie Howe is H. That is the best rumour that I have heard of any during this whole time. So
that's specific.
That is very specific.
Very specific.
I've got two wee bits of info, and I'm going to drop one of them. One of them is relating to the playing side, and one of them is relating to the board side. Which do you want to hear? Because I'm quite confident that both are definitely true.
Both.
Pick one.
Both player.
On the playing side, what I'm hearing is that someone else will be brought in as captain, and that Callum McGregor, if he stays at the club, will be Celtic's vice captain next season. That's not 100% confirmed yet, but that at the moment looks to be the move. And the idea of bringing in a new captain, I mean, it's kind of logical anyway, but Eddie Howe is going to be very much the man that makes, him and his sporting team will make that decision.
Aye, I think that's right. I mean, leadership, there's going to be a leadership void if we're not. We need to be careful because Scott Brown is gone, and I think there might be a bit of leadership vacuum if you talk about guys like Ayer maybe moving on. Don't think there's a lot of natural leaders in the team.
The idea of Chris Ayer as a leader doesn't even really strike me as very. I mean, he's imposing in terms of his height, but he's 6'4" standing, 5'9" when he jumps. So, like, I mean, there is a big leadership void at Celtic. I would say Callum McGregor is the closest thing to a natural leader, but he's a player. By the way, this is another massive thing. See, players at Celtic, there's a kind of lifespan on how long they should spend with us if they want their career to have longevity. Because see the fact that their season ends and then you've got a million European qualifiers. That's why Kieran Tierney keeps getting injured. It's why Callum McGregor's finally burnt out. He's clapped out after 3 or 4 seasons, been right on it. But you're right about the leadership void. Although I think Scott Brown should have been gone. And this is an opinion loads of folk don't agree with. I think he should have been gone for Celtic before he was. I think in football sometimes there's a tendency to stay loyal to people when they go beyond their efficacy. And Scott Brown became only really useful for me from a tactical point of view because he's quite limited in his versatility as a midfielder. Always has really been since he lost his kind of dynamic running energy. And even then, his passing technical ability and finishing ability wasn't great. But he became a player that was only good in European games where he wasn't going to have a lot of the ball. So I think Scott Brown would have been better for Celtic to try and move that a bit like Alex Ferguson did at Man United to rejuvenate earlier. And I think that was one of a litany, a catalogue of mistakes, which eventually led to the surrendering of 10 in a row.
We'd be here all night if we talked about all the mistakes that led to the letting go of 10 in a row, mate. So you're keeping the bit of information about the board for your own timeline.
I'll keep that up my sleeve for now because there's a couple of bits I want to firm up anyway, just to make sure it's 100%. But what I will say is, right, there's no guarantee after this. This might be the end of Hodgie the Hack report and Celtic stuff. Most of my connections, to be honest, before this were down in Norwich. It's just now that I've started really properly cultivating my contacts north of the border and trying to do that. But what I will say is, if I ever get any information, I'll firm it up and I'll go through the proper process. I'm not just going to hear a rumour and report it. I'll go through the proper process that any sort of good journalist would. Or if I'm unable to do that, so for example, if I can't get a second source to stand something up, I'll say it's one source is telling me this, but it's a source I trust. I'll do all the things and I'll just present news as and when I get it. I might not get anywhere. There might be nothing for years and then I stumble across something in my 60s. You never know. But if I hear anything, and I think it'll be of value, not just to Celtic fans, but to Rangers fans, Dundee United fans, whoever, then I'll be certain to report it. And by the way, I'd be more than happy to come on again and just, I don't know, opine about Celtic if you'll have me once the football gets back underway.
Absolutely. Before you go, thank you for your time again. Do you want to plug your own channel? Where can these people find you?
Oh, aye. So I'm basically plastered all across social media now as Hodgie the Hack, which I don't think you've got the wee names up, but it's HODGEY the Hack, HACK. You can find me obviously on Twitter. You can find me everywhere else that you want to. There you go, as if it was made at the bottom. Aye, so anybody that searches that on any of the social medias can find me. I've started my own YouTube channel. I've got a Norwich podcast that I'm doing the new, because obviously I used to be the club commentator and stuff doing there, but I'll be launching other stuff that is of value and interest to Scottish football fans very, very, very soon. So hopefully people keep a lookout for that, and hopefully it can be half as successful as your channel, bud.
I'm sure they will, mate. I'm sure they will. Thanks again. That's it. Like the video, comment with your own thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you soon, hopefully, for a big announcement. Cheers.